Hopefulness 2.0, May 2nd. This is a container of the remainder of the seasonings that were in the spaghetti chicken that I made last night. I forgot to cut up the chicken. Also, yeah, they totally, food stylists put a lot of work into that one, that's for sure. It was good. I gotta admit though, again, it feels like, there is a bit more waste to it. There's shit. Now sure, you could say, the bag that I might take to pick up a zucchini was about the same size as the bag they had. And that felt wasteful. And, maybe there's some savings depending on circumstance. But, like, for me, it feels like it's wasteful. It feels like I have too much plastic, I have too much cardboard, I have too much of everything with regards to all just the packaging and stuff. The addition of the pecans was a good thing. Alright, so I have all of this, right? I have two of these. $8.74 for just over 5 pounds worth of chicken. Now this would be about the amount of plastic that I think that one zucchini came in. It wasn't a very big one either. Did its job, put it on the pan, some oil, throw in some salt and pepper, good to go. It didn't help it that at one point, because I was, using the two burners here, and at one point I screwed up and I turned the pot of water off while I was cooking the pasta. And I was like, why is it taking the pasta water so long to boil up? And I looked down and I'm like, wait, is the fire off? What the fuck? And then I look at it and I was like, oh, it's actually off. I thought, I was just leaking fucking gas in the house. Which would have been pretty fucking bad. But fortunately that wasn't the case. And I want to say I slightly overcooked the chicken just a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. I mean, it's chicken breast, it's easy to do with regards to that. Just because, it's just like trying to get everything done right, and because I screwed up the whole pasta thing, it threw off the timing on some stuff too. But in the end, it ended up, I took the advice of many people that I have seen on the internet and taste the pasta. You don't throw it up against the fucking refrigerator on the wall or whatever crap like that. Take a piece of it and you taste it. Now, sure, it just came out of boiling water, so what do? Well, what I did is took one of my curved forks, my Norks. These are fucking great. And just kind of dip it in there and see if you can catch one. And because it's hooked, It's easier to catch than if it were straight. So catch one, make sure it doesn't fall off or anything, because the last thing you want to do is take it over, bring it over to the sink, kind of blow on a little bit. It's nice surface area, it'll cool off pretty quickly. Take that, eat the whole thing. That's how you taste pasta, especially spaghetti. Because if you think about it, what qualities are you looking for? You're looking for qualities that you like in your mouth. This is why tasting regularly when you're cooking something is a good idea. You're tasting for seasoning, for spaghetti or other pasta. You're tasting for toothiness. You're tasting for al dente or whatever you like. Maybe you like it on the mushier side. Maybe you like it even tighter than al dente. It doesn't matter. What matters is how you like it will determine how long you've needed to cook it. That's why whenever I see, a time of like, let's say on here, this says 7 minutes for authentic al dente. So I'll put it in for 6 because I don't know how much longer I'm going to end up cooking it. And depending on so many other factors, I may end up cooking it further along in the process. And kind of like in this process, it's like you cook it until al dente, then you set it aside. But then later on, you're emulsifying with sour cream and butter. And you're also using, you have olive oil, garlic, lemon zest, chili flakes, and some of the pasta water. You're cooking those things up. Oh, there's my, I was trying to find these and they were hidden. So I used my own, because I already have some. And that's another thing about this. It's like, it makes sense if you have none of the ingredients at all that are in the package. Now, there's some things that says, you've got to get a large pot, a zester, which, good thing I have one of those. A strainer, a large pan, paper towels, kosher salt, black pepper, olive oil, cooking oil, butter. Those things I already have, but I also already have chili flakes, because I put that in stuff sometimes. And it's like, if you don't have any of those ingredients, then that kind of makes sense that you're not wasting. But then, if you do already have those ingredients, then whatever they're giving you is kind of a waste. So there's this weird balancing act that's necessary for this whole HelloFresh thing to work out right. And if I want to save money, if I want to not be wasteful, I will try to save money by buying in bulk, like what I did with, the chicken thighs. And so, now you might be saying, well, I don't want to eat chicken thighs all damn week or whatever. It's like, well, okay, but chicken thighs are cheap, but tasty. Put them in a lot of stuff. I'm gonna make some rice later, maybe, if not today, then tomorrow. And that's a big thing. It's like, you have to kind of prep for the future with that kind of stuff too. And some might say, well, I'm getting tired of chicken. Well, no, you're not getting tired of chicken. You're getting tired of eating exactly the same thing, because you do chicken pretty well, pretty easily, without a whole lot of problem. it works out really well if you do things right. Also got me Parmesan shaky cheese, yo. Parmesan cheese, pasteurized, part skim milk, cheese culture, salt enzymes, microbial. Powdered cellulose added to prevent caking. Potassium sorbate to protect flavor. Contains milk. Aged over 10 milk from cows not treated with RBST, even though it doesn't really matter. No significant difference has been shown between milk derived from RBST treated and non-RBST treated cows. It's funny how they have to put all that crap on there. And a good thing about it is you don't really have to put it in the fridge. AmeriFoods Trading. But, yeah, I mean, I'm glad I tested out the HelloFresh thing. It's interesting. But at the same time, like, excuse me. I mean, it's the same as just going and getting a recipe and then buying stuff for that recipe. And, you know, being smart about what you're going to buy. It's like, okay, so there's Italian seasonings in it. And then what is Italian seasoning? Well, you can then look into what Italian seasoning has in it and then buy those things. And then whenever you want something that has that Italian seasoning type flavor to it, then here you go. You can put in the proper amounts of those things. This, you know, like many things, HelloFresh is designed specifically for convenience. And while there is that whole study that's constantly touted in it, that study, like many other studies, is going to have very specific parameters associated with it. And that study often does not have those specific parameters quoted in the various sponsorships that people on YouTube and various other places have. And it's not even likely to be on their website either. You know, I think it's an MIT study, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, that's great and all, but what are the criteria? What are the standards in which this study, you know, what was the basis of the standards of the study? You know, was it studied in a predominantly black area? Was it studied in a diverse area? Was it studied in who knows what? You know, what information did they use? Was it compound? And that's not inherently bad, you know, and it's not necessarily misleading either. But the problem with that is that it showcases a type of authority. It uses essentially the fallacy from authority. I think that might be the name. I'm not sure, but using something that has a position of authority. I mean, you know, it's a study from MIT. You know, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, man. Which a lot of people don't really understand what MIT truly is. It's just, it has this sort of, you know, public persona, whether it be through movies that tout it up or what have you. You know, there has been, if you will, a big marketing push in one capacity or another throughout decades to say that MIT is like up there. It's the upper, and I'm not disparaging the school. But it's almost like if you get into MIT, you're gonna be smart. And that, I mean, like many colleges, especially many private colleges, there is a lot of reputation involved. Reputation comes in many forms. It's like with the whole Texas A&M thing. Like if you're an Aggie and you have the ring and you go in for a job interview and that person is also an Aggie, chances are you're going to get that job type thing. There's a lot of influence with regards to that. And underneath all of that, well, more superficially, there's a lot of whiteness involved in that too. And the studies that people will do, especially at colleges, you know, a lot of them are studied on white college-aged males. This is not to say that these studies are invalid. They are not. They are valid studies. However, the application of that study may not be as valid. The implication of that study is also not necessarily valid. You can make a lot of implications based on a study, but that doesn't mean that that study meant anything beyond a specific parameter. We're talking about statistics, we're talking about so many other factors. I scratch my ass. Ugh. Take a shower later too. And so, while the study may be valid, it in many ways is omitting information. And there's multiple reasons for this, but when a corporation, i.e. HelloFresh, mentions a study by, you know, an upper echelon college for blah blah blah, whatever it may be, they're not doing it for your sake. They're doing it for their own sake. They're doing it to sell their product. It might sound cynical, but it's the truth. And the only reason that I decided to do this HelloFresh test was because it was cheap enough. And then I automatically canceled my shit. Like, if it was $28 a week for 3 meals with 2 servings apiece, then it would probably be fine. It's still more expensive than I can do it. Yes, there's so many other factors. There's times, materials, and blah, 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 blah. But how much time does it take for HelloFresh to send all that stuff to me? You know, yeah, there's economy of scale that's going on, but what about fuel costs, especially now? You know, there's so many factors that are involved in getting this box to me. And while, yes, economy of scale is what makes certain businesses more profitable, they're also making profit. So how much of that money am I actually saving? You know, this is a point of contention in a capitalist society with big businesses doing what they do. You know, look at Walmart, look at Amazon. Yes, I am saving money in one way or another by using those companies. But at the same time, they are driving out competition. They're potentially maximizing on their ability to be a monopoly. And at any given point, their product and or service could start to degrade, and then it won't matter because they're the ones that exist. And these are things we have to consider. Yes, it's difficult to have to worry about this, plus all the other shit you gotta worry about in your fucking life. Um, takes a lot of a compartmentalization. When you're stressed about a relationship, when you're stressed about school, when you're stressed about work, when you're stressed about your car, whatever it may be, you know, where you buy your necessities tends to be put on not even the fucking back burner. It tends to be put in the fucking warming bin at the back of McDonald's, you know. It's under a heating lamp for 5 hours type thing, metaphorically speaking. You know, you're not putting it on a back burner. You're taking it completely off this fucking stove and you're putting it under a heat lamp and saying, I'll eat it later. Because there are more pertinent things. There's pots with boiling water, and there's, you know, these things, metaphorically speaking, are the stuff that you're focusing on. There's pans with, you know, splattering oil and blah, blah, blah. These things are important because they're right there in your face and it can cause real harm if you don't pay attention to them. I get it. Some would say, well, these things aren't that important. You know, a relationship's really not all that bad. You know what? I've been a kid. I've been an adult. I think. You know, relationships are important because we put so much of ourselves in them. And then when they don't work out, we feel like part of us has been ripped away from us. And so when somebody's like, oh yeah, that relationship's all superficial, blah, 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 it's just puppy love, it doesn't feel like that to the person. It feels important. It feels impactful because it is. It is important. It is impactful because of how much that person has put into that other person. Be it friendship, love, it doesn't matter what it is, you know, it is like so many other things, it's a return on investment, you know, to use business terms. You're investing in this relationship. And then there's a reason why a lot of times people stay in bad relationships. It's shit. The sunk cost fallacy, where I already put so much into it, why giving up on it would be bad because it would feel bad, and then you don't necessarily know what you're going to do with yourself. It's one of the reasons why we become addicted to things too, you know, be it video games or relationships with people, you know, toxic people or substances, you know, work, or not work, you know. Or where we get our stuff from. Now they're saying that this stuff is delivered from local sources. I don't know what a local source is based on their definition either. But, and while yes, if I go to Food for Less, I'm giving money to Kroger, who was trying to trying to fuck over the various Kroger employees, and with the strikes and everything, it's like there's only so much I can do. And this was a lesson that I felt that was really well illuminated, if you will, in The Good Place. And I mentioned this before in another video too. And like, everybody was going to the bad place because everybody was doing something that was contributing to bad things in some way or another. Like, just because you buy an apple for 30 cents doesn't mean you're being a bad person. Even if the acquisition of that apple helped with slave labor or, you know, shitty work conditions or something along those lines, or, you know, corruption in some, you know, land that's far away. And it's not to say that these things aren't important. They are important. The problem is being able to make every single decision based on this information. You would be paralyzed into nothing. You would literally starve. And I'm not saying this is good. I'm not saying this is acceptable. We have a lot of problems in this world. But if we said, I'm not going to do anything that could ever jeopardize, I'm not going to buy a product, I'm not going to buy a service, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, because of these bad slave labor practices, blah, 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 you're going to die of starvation. You will. And that is a sobering thought. And it sucks. And it's terrible. But there's a lot you cannot do about with regards to just going and buying stuff. You can attempt to get your voice heard through voting, and unfortunately, depending on where you live, your vote may not even fucking work. They may not even let you vote for all intents and purposes because of who you are. You know, and it's because there's a lot of people out there who are like, well, things are great the way they are, and I'm afraid that if we do anything different, it's going to get worse. Which, generally speaking, is not the case. Sure, sometimes it gets worse. You know, look at the Patriot Act. Politically speaking, you know, it's like, hey, we reacted negatively, and now things are worse with regard to that. But, you know, there's a fun thing about humans is that, generally speaking, if we allow ourselves to understand that mistakes have happened, we can try to fix them. You don't have to keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's not necessary. It's harder sometimes to fix those problems, depending on a lot of circumstances. Going back to some of those fears of the unknown future. And yeah, we're all afraid of the unknown future in some way or another. We may not feel like we're equipped to handle one thing or another. We see those things we see that, you know, to go back to the analogy / metaphor, we see that pot of boiling water, and we see that olive oil cooking on the pan, and it's sputtering and everything. And so we have to pay attention to those things so that they don't become problematic. Because those things are important right now. But just because you put it under a heat lamp doesn't mean it's good to just throw away either. You put it under the heat lamp to stay warm, so that you will come back to it. the stuff at the front settles down, hopefully you don't have more shit that's automatically just going to replace it. Hopefully you get to make your choices. And in the end, with enough of us doing that, ideally, in the coming years, things get better. Hopefully, ideally, of course. And if you're a catastrophist like me, you probably won't see that at all. And no matter what's in front of you, you always think the pot of water is boiling. And the oil is sputtering, and they're too close to each other. And you're working with an open flame. At some point, something's going to burn, and you feel like you're going to burn your house down. Well, first things first. Take care of what's important now. And then, when you're ready, take on something else. And it takes time to understand when you're ready. And a lot of stuff can pile up. And it can feel overwhelming. And it's hard. And I don't have strategies. I wish I did. Wish I had advice. I don't. If somebody else has some, leave a comment. Why not? Like and subscribe. Have fun.